Oh.
Hi, and welcome to Growing Up Guide Pup. This week we took Ricky on one of the most challenging outings she has ever been on. We took her for her very first airplane ride. So we started our adventure hopping in the car and driving to SFO Airport. We parked in the long-term parking lot, and Ricky had her very first experience going on an elevator with a glass window. We were at the very top of the parking garage, and she got to ride the elevator all the way down 7 flights and was very interested on what was on the outside. She didn't seem to show any fear of heights, but was really interested and curious of why all of a sudden the ground was coming at her. The next new experience Ricky had was getting on a bus for the very first time. We had to take a shuttle to the airport from the parking garage. We went to get on the bus, and the bus driver asked for Ricky's paperwork. This is a great reason why I should always have Ricky's ID card on me at all times. Now, when traveling with the dogs, I have been asked to present her ID card in the past, but this was the very first time that I had been asked to match it with her collar. He turned it around, saw that there was a picture on it, and said, "This isn't the dog, I need her paperwork." Well, I explained to him that she does have an ID number, and it matched the number on her collar and also the tattoo in her ear. Once I took off her collar and showed him the ID number matched, he was fine with us getting on the bus. We were unable to get a lot of video footage of Ricky going through security, but she handled it like a pro. So Ricky and I were not allowed to go through the metal detector together. So one of the big reasons why we have waited to do this type of trip with Ricky is to make sure she is very reliable in her downstay. Because I had to leave her in a downstay as I walked through the metal detector. Now granted, there's a lot of distractions, other people walking by, so I had to make sure she was really ready for this. When Ricky was walking through the terminal, she handled it really well. There's people everywhere walking all different directions, and not only that, they're dragging suitcases and other things behind them, which also make noise and can be a pretty big distraction. This didn't bother Ricky one bit. Before our flight, we did take Ricky over to the window so she could see the airplanes on the tarmac and also hear the noises that they make, and try to get her a little bit more comfortable with the whole entire experience. So when it was finally time to board the plane, Ricky also handled this without any issues. It can be a little frightening because you're walking right up to the plane, it's kind of loud, you can smell the jet fuel, there's people crowding, and you're walking through a tunnel. So we got to our seat and we tried to get Ricky settled as much as possible. It was a very tight fit. It was a very small plane with 2 seats on either side of each row, and there was not enough room in the overhead bin for us to put all of our carry-on luggage on, so Ricky had to sit with some of it. We did put Matt's jacket down on the floor for her so she had something comfortable to lay on to help minimize her discomfort. Ricky settled into the seat nicely and had no problem when we took off. The noise didn't seem to bother her, and the feeling of takeoff didn't seem to faze her. However, about 15 minutes into the flight, all of a sudden, Ricky was uncomfortable and disturbed by something. She jumped up, tried to stand up, but she didn't have a whole lot of room to move around and change positions. And I think this is one of the main reasons why all of a sudden she just seemed to be having a problem. Ricky started panting very heavily and even at times was having some little muscle tremors. Now, it wasn't a huge panic attack. She wasn't crying. She wasn't trying to get up. She really did maintain her composure. We did rake out the treats so we could give her some food rewards to, help reinforce her that this is going to be a positive experience and try to calm her down a little bit. We were really surprised that Ricky had some anxiety on the flight. This is the first time she's really portrayed any of these behaviors and weren't really expecting it. Ricky did settle down, and when we did land, she had no problem with this. It didn't seem to bother her at all. We did wait for pretty much everybody to leave the plane before we left our seats. We were in the very last row, and it was a very tight fit, so it was just easier for us to get Ricky off the plane after waiting for everybody else to leave first. And she handled it really well. No pulling, no lunging. She walked off the plane very nicely and back through the terminal until we got outside. Okay, so obviously when you fly somewhere, you gotta fly home. So Ricky's experience flying home was a little bit different than her experience flying to our destination. So on the flight home, Ricky had a bigger airplane. So we had more room for her, and this time it wasn't a full flight and we had enough storage room to put all of our carry-on luggage in the overhead bins. Not to mention there was a lot more legroom for her. So we ended up with an hour-and-a-half delay where we were actually sitting on the plane for that whole hour-and-a-half on the tarmac waiting for approval from the tower to get our takeoff. The delay didn't seem to bother Ricky at all. She was much more comfortable on this airplane. She had a lot more room to stretch out and change positions, and I think that was a huge factor of why she was uncomfortable on the flight earlier. So when we finally took off and got going, Ricky seemed to handle it very well. But once again, a few minutes into flight, Ricky started panting. This panting wasn't nearly as bad as the first trip. She seemed much more relaxed, but still needed a little something to calm her down. So when the beverage cart came through, we asked for an extra cup of ice so we could give a little bit to Ricky. This seemed to help her tremendously. She was probably pretty thirsty after our long delay, and Matt sat there and fed her ice chips very slowly, and she seemed to settle right down and ended up sleeping the entire flight. Ricky loves ice cubes. She thinks they're one of the best treats in the world. And giving her ice cubes over a bowl of water also makes it so she doesn't have to go to the bathroom as quickly. There's not as much water in the ice cubes as a bowl of water, and it seemed to really help settle her down, and she just really handled the rest of the flight like a pro. Now I want to make it clear that a trip like this is not for every puppy. Ricky's only the third puppy that I have attempted to put on an airplane, and this is because a lot of our other puppies have not been mature or had the confidence to handle a trip like this. Ricky has proven time and time again that she is super reliable with her potty habits. She is actually one of the best puppies we've ever raised in her relieving. She's always consistent and never has any accidents on us. And this is important for doing a trip like this because once you enter that airport, the only way you can take your puppy out to go to the bathroom is to re-exit and have to go all the way through security again. So I want to thank Guide Dogs for the Blind for granting us permission to take Ricky on an airplane. It proved to be a great experience for her. And I also want to thank United Airlines for allowing us to take Ricky into the cabin. They're one of the only airlines that I know of that will fly the puppies in training in the cabin because Ricky's not a certified guide dog yet. Most of the airlines will not take her. So stay tuned, we've got a few extra episodes coming your way of Ricky's birthday special in Disneyland. So I'll see you all next time on Growing Up Guide Pup.